Hello, welcome back. We are reading out loud on the Heavenly Spheres with Helena Abelard and Luis Ribeiro. And we're on chapter 8. And we're on page 108. And we're in the chapter of aspects. Let's dig in. Okay. Partile and plactic aspects. Nevertheless, this moon/Mars aspect. Oh, that's right. We were talking about this mutual aspect with the moon at 17 and Mars at 10, Virgo, moon at Capricorn. 17 Capricorn and Mars at, oh God, 10 Virgo. Okay. Nevertheless, this moon-Mars aspect would not be exact. For that to occur, both planets would have to occupy the same degree in their respective signs. For instance, 10 degrees Virgo, Mars, and 10 degrees Capricorn, Moon. We can thus distinguish between two types of aspects, partile and plactic aspects. A partile aspect occurs when the planets are located in the same degree and the aspect between them is exact. When the aspect is outside of that degree, but still within the necessary orb, it is said to be a plactic aspect. The closer to the exact aspect, the more intense are its effects. You know, I've been studying a little bit. I have never heard the word plactic before. This is why we read books. Okay. Due to the differences in orbs for the planets, often the aspects are not mutual. The orb of planet A may touch the body of planet B, but the orb of planet B may not touch the body of planet A. In such a case, oh no, excuse me. This is kind of what okay, yeah. In such a case, we have a slightly weaker aspect. Only when both planets are within each other's orb is the aspect especially active. For example, consider the Sun at 2 degrees Gemini and Saturn at 13 degrees of the same sign. The orb of the Sun, within 15 degrees of range, extends to 17 Gemini and touches the body of Saturn at 13 degrees. However, the orb of Saturn only reaches as far as 4 degrees Gemini and thus does not touch the body of the Sun. We then say that Saturn is within the orb of the Sun, but the Sun is not within the orb of Saturn. There is a conjunction between the planets, but the aspect is one-sided and doesn't express itself completely. The same logic applies to oppositions, trines, squares, and sextiles. So what does that mean for interpretation? So fascinating. Okay, out of sign aspects. Due to the range created by the orb of the planet, an aspect between signs without affinity or compatibility may occur. This happens when the planets are located at the end of one sign and their orb reaches into the next sign, or when they're located in the beginning of one sign and the orb reaches back into the previous sign. This is called an out of sign aspect. These are some examples. See figure 11. Oh, I'm not going to make more than 2 videos tonight. Sorry, I'm yawning. So those pictures are on the other side, so I'm going to wait on that. Planet A is at 28 degrees Leo and planet B is at 2 degrees Virgo, forming a very tight conjunction, only 4 degrees apart. But the aspect is between two adjacent signs that do not see each other. Planet C is at 1 degrees Taurus, forming a sextile to planet D at 29 Aquarius. It's a tight aspect, 2 degrees apart, but between signs they are naturally square to one another. Planet E is at 27 Virgo, forms a square to planet F at 2 degrees Capricorn, and despite being a tight square 5 degrees apart, the signs involved are normally in a trine relationship with each other. The term partile can simply be substituted by the expression exact and plactic by within the orb, which is what I'm most used to hearing for sure. All right, little sub box there. going back to the planets, planet G is at 27 degrees Cancer in opposition to planet H, which is at 1 degree Aquarius. It's in a tight opposition, 4 degrees apart, that ties together signs that normally do not aspect each other. They're normally in aversion. The aspects can also form aspects to other components of the chart, such as the ascendant, the midheaven, Arabic parts, etc. Since these factors are mathematical points and not celestial bodies, they do not have an orb. In these cases, we simply use the orb of the planet to calculate the aspect. The conjunction and oppositions are less affected by out-of-sign aspects since their effects derive mainly from the positions of the planets, corporally together or in opposite placements of the chart rather than from the signs being involved, or the signs involved. The validity of these aspects is often a source of debate between authors. Apparently, the more ancient authors only considered the aspect when it occurred in the appropriate sign, while later authors considered the aspect valid as long as it was within orb. There are recorded cases of aspects by degree in the ancient Greek authors. The problem is somewhat academic. Practical experience has demonstrated that out-of-sign aspects represent circumstances that, without impeding the action of the aspect, can nevertheless disrupt its normal functioning. Thus, out-of-sign trines and sextiles display some instability, while the squares appear to be more fluid. The characteristics that are not typical of these aspects. In any case, there is no existing doctrine with regard to out-of-sign aspects. Their interpretation depends on their particular context. Variations in the definitions of an aspect. Some Renaissance authors, 15th and 16th centuries, use a slightly different rule for the definition of aspects. Although they use the concept of orb, they contend that the orb is formed when one planet when one planet's half orb touches the other planet's half orb. There is thus a division of the orbs into halves, whose technical term is moiety, from the French moitié, meaning half. For example, see figure 12. You looking down there? Let's see figure 12. Consider the moon at 14 degrees of Gemini, or 6, half of 12, and the moiety of Mercury's 3 degrees and 30 minutes, half of 7, and the result is 9 degrees and 30 minutes, which is the 6 plus the 3 plus the minutes. This is the range within which the planets may touch each other in the formation of an aspect. Since in this instance the distance between both planets is 8 degrees, a value smaller than the range, there exists in an aspect since the moieties, the halves, orbs, of the planets slightly overlap. We can say that the moon and Mercury are conjunct. This is a more mathematical perspective on the concept because it takes the average of the degrees of orb of each of the planets involved. The earlier method is more physical. We therefore have two systems. In the orb body system, which we use in this book, considers the aspect to occur when the ray from one planet, from planet A, touches the body of planet B. The system of moieties, which I've never heard of before, I love it, which considers the aspect to occur when half of planet A's orb, touches half of planet B's orb. Currently, the last system is more popular. Oh, really? Okay, is more popular among students and practitioners of traditional astrology. This happens not because this system is more logical or practical than the other, but because it is more well known. Its popularity is credited primarily to William Lilly, the most well-known traditional author in the English language, who uses it in his significant work, Christian Astrology. I haven't looked at that book yet. We use the orb body system, which is the typical system in the majority of traditional texts. Besides that, it is a system that rests on the principles of ancient optical theory. An object is only visible when the rays that it emits touches the body, the eyes, ojos, of the observer. In this sense, the orb body system is more reasonable because it argues that the aspect occurs when the light from the planet touches the body of another. In the moiety system, moiete, it is the light from both planets that touch one another, which seems inconsistent with classical optical theory. In any event, the practical difference between both systems is negligible. The orb body system tends to be a bit more generous, allowing for slightly wider aspects. Okay. Aspects in motion, applications and separations. When we look at a chart, we see a fixed moment in time. The planets are frozen in their trajectories, and for that reason, the aspects appear static. However, this is only a practical convenience because nothing in nature is static. Because the planets are always in motion, the aspects constitute dynamic relationship. The dynamism characteristics of the aspects derives from each planet's distinct speed. An aspect is always formed by the swiftest planet because it is the planet that approaches or distances itself from the slower planet. For example, consider Mercury at 3 degrees Pisces and Jupiter at 9 degrees of the same sign. Mercury, sorry, because Mercury is at 3 degrees Pisces and Jupiter at 9 degrees, one can easily conclude that the exact aspect will occur when Mercury physically joins Jupiter at 9 degrees Pisces. The aspect is within orb, but it's still forming. This aspect is then referred to as applying. If Mercury were at 14 degrees Pisces and Jupiter still at 9 of the same sign, it would also be a conjunction, but Mercury would be separating from this exact aspect. That is called a separating aspect, because the faster one's at the bigger number. When planet A, the faster planet, comes into orb of the aspect of planet B, the slower planet, the aspect begins to form. In this phase, the planet is applying to the aspect with planet B. At a certain point, the planets reach the exact distance for the aspect to form, and the aspect then completes itself, it perfects. It's partile. Then we have, yeah, I really wasn't reading ahead. Then we have a partile or exact aspect. As soon as planet A begins to distance itself from planet B by more than 1 degree, the aspect begins to break up. In this phase, planet A separates itself from the aspect to planet B. The separation continues until planet A, which is the faster planet, leaves the orb and the aspect ends. Recall that the relative speeds of the planets is given to us from the Chaldean order. The Moon, Mercury, Venus, the Sun, Mars, Jupiter, and then Saturn. The Moon is always the fastest celestial body, so it presents no problem. The Sun has a relatively constant speed of approximately 1 degree per day. The remaining planets, despite following the Chaldean order, often exhibit slight irregularities in their speeds. This happens when they change the direction of their motion from direct to retrograde and back again. For a more precise study, it is necessary to consult planetary tables in order to determine their exact speed. See planetary speeds in Chapter 5. So that means we've already read it. Okay. Particular situations occur when one of the two planets involved in this aspect is retrograde. For instance, suppose planet A is approaching the aspect of planet B, which is retrograde, and also approaching the aspect to planet A. In this case, the planets are in mutual application because they're both approaching one another. Similarly, planet A may be separating from planet B, which being retrograde may also be separating from planet A, and in this case, there is a mutual separation. Applications and separations illustrate the dynamic nature of the aspects and are extremely important in determining the outcome of the actions described in the horoscope. Applying aspects describe what will happen, while separating aspects describe what has happened. This type of interpretation is particularly relevant in horary astrology and in event charts. And then we have all these lovely variations of these pictures showing all the cycles. Hopefully you have this book and you're looking at exactly the same page. It's weird when all the background happens like that. Okay, that's the end of this. We'll start back on page 113 next. Have a lovely evening. Bye for now.